when they see that rotten core of messed up stuff, of the pathetic, angry little bitch who knows what he's supposed to do, but can't bring himself to do it. How do you feel towards yourself? You're so angry towards yourself. And then the part of you that's like, no, you're a good person. But this other part of you is like, no, you're not. I'm the asshole in my story, and I don't know how to change. I'm like a weird middle-class version of Joffrey from Game of Thrones or Homelander from The Boys. If you're not familiar with them, they're characters known for their cruelty and lack of empathy. The difference is I wasn't raised to be this way. My parents did everything right, but somehow I turned out like this. My parents gave me everything they had. They always encouraged me to be kind and considerate, enrolling me in various activities and trying to teach me empathy. But even as a kid, I'd have these intense tantrums that went beyond normal childhood behavior. My mom is like a maid for the whole family, but I treat her like shit whenever I'm angry, not in the mood, or if something doesn't go my way. I go full Joffrey Homelander mode, taking out my temper on them. I don't know how I got this way. My dad's a bit of a dictator, and that's tolerable. My mom does all the heavy lifting at home, which might be why I'm such a spoiled brat. Everything's been handed to me on a silver platter. I first realized how problematic my behavior was in high school. A friend called me out on my attitude, and it hit me hard. But even though I recognized the issue, I struggled to change. It's affected every aspect of my life. I've lost my friends who couldn't handle my mood swings. At work, I'm known as the office hothead, which has definitely limited my career prospects. I've tried therapy and anger management, but I always quit after a few sessions. It's like I can't stand the idea of someone else telling me how to behave, and even when I know I need the help. I've had several girlfriends who all left me after seeing who I really am. My first girlfriend would always forgive me because I can't live without her, but once we got back together, I'd return to my old habits, never putting in effort and blaming her for our fights. I treated my ex-girlfriends the same way I treat my parents. I'm terrified of what my future looks like if I can't get this under control. Will I end up completely alone? Will I ever be able to maintain a healthy relationship or advance my career? I know I'm not all bad. I can be funny and creative. I'm great with computers. I've been told I'm a good cook, but I don't know how to change. Such a great post. I know it's long. So anger really makes us feel out of control. Not just makes us feel out of control, makes us out of control. And sometimes we don't really know what the problem is, but sometimes we do. Sometimes we can look at our anger, we have insight into it, and then we sort of realize like, oh my God, like I can't control this, right? Like, what do I do? And this person has some insight, right? They'll sort of like look at themselves and they'll say, okay, like I've tried therapy and anger management, but I always quit after a few sessions. It's like I can't stand the idea of someone else telling me how to behave, even when I know I need help. So how do you manage this? How do you understand if you're someone who gets so angry, sabotages your relationships, you've even tried to get help, but you can't stand help? What's going on? So there are a few important principles that we have to understand about how anger works. We're going to start with socialization. So when we move through the world and we relate to other people, the way that we relate to ourselves and the way that we relate to other people, which I know sounds like a weird phrase, how do you relate to yourself, has to do with what we're shown. So we have a mom who's subservient and a dad who's a dictator. So what is the social script? This person obeys, this person dictates, right? So this is the script. So then what happens is like this person gets angry and yells at mom, and then mom falls into the script of saying, okay. Now, dictator, it seems like, is not regulating this behavior. So one of the reasons why we learn how to become incredibly angry is because our parents don't teach us the proper emotional regulation skills. Right? Now, why don't they teach us the proper emotional regulation skills? This is the script, but, and we'll get to this later, if the dictator does not get super angry all the time, we'll get to that in a second, they won't have learned these skills. So one of the most challenging things about being a parent is when you have a child whose brain is different from yours. So when I'm like, this is why it's like so hard to be a parent of a neuroatypical child. So I have a daughter who's probably neuroatypical, and I have a daughter who probably is neurotypical. And I'm a little bit neuroatypical. My wife is neurotypical. And so the really hard thing is if you have a child who has ADHD or is on the autism spectrum, or in the case of this person probably has some flavor of intermittent explosive disorder or oppositional defiant disorder, or both. We'll get to those in a second. But the way that their brain responds to situations is just a ton of anger. But if your parents haven't had a brain that just gets really angry really quickly, they literally don't know how to teach you how to manage that anger because they have no idea. And this is the problem, right? Is what they'll do is the solutions they offer assumes the brain that they have. And this is why it's so hard to parent neuroatypical kids unless you're neuroatypical, because the solutions that you come up with for the problems in your life presume the brain that you have. But if the brain that you have is different, then we don't know how to translate our solutions for that brain. Hey y'all, if you're interested in applying some of the principles that we share to actually create change in your life, check out Dr. K's Guide to Mental Health.
And so we start by understanding what literally is meditation. How does experience shape us as human beings? How do we strengthen the mind itself as an organ? And so by understanding our mind, we understand a very, very simple tool, a crucial tool that we have to learn how to use if we want to build the life that we want to.
So check out the link in the bio and start your journey today. Now, a really simple example of this is if I'm a parent who can see and I have a child who is blind, then obviously I can't teach them my solutions. I have to come up with a new set of solutions for my child. The problem with things like anger or people who are neurotypical, especially girls, because we don't realize that they have ADHD, is that the parent doesn't realize that you're blind. So they don't even realize that they need to do something else. They need to figure out a new solution for you. So then what happens is they go on trying to impose what works for them, which may have worked for their parents, right? And this person kind of says, my aunts and uncles are like this too, but my parents aren't. That's a really important piece of information. And then the solutions that your parents give you assume a brain that responds to moderate emotional regulation, doesn't need emotional like care and maintenance on a day-to-day basis. So it doesn't work. Okay. Now, the good news is once you understand what, and this is the job of every parent, right? To understand the idiosyncrasies of your child. How is my child different? What really works for them? So I think the start of this, if you're someone who's struggling with anger and you don't know like how to get a control of yourself, the first thing you should look at is what is the social script? And then when you got angry with mom, was that behavior tolerated or not tolerated? And I'm not getting a whole lot of sense of intolerance of this behavior or the appropriate emotional regulation tools, which doesn't mean that the parents are at fault per se, because like they did the best that they could. But I think we still like, just because we can diagnose a problem somewhere doesn't mean that it is anybody's fault. It's just the way things are. Okay. So what is the social script that you were taught? You were taught that you can be a dictator and that the person that you're dating, right? Mom is obeys and is subservient and dad dictates. So you're a dictator too. You fall into the dictator role. And so you like mimic this socialization. Second thing, the brain. Sometimes the people that sometimes the reason that we get really angry is because our brain is itchy. What do I mean by an itchy brain? That means it takes very little stimulus to get a reaction. So we experience more intensity of anger. We have a lower threshold to trigger anger, and the duration of anger is longer. So there are certain things that we can do here in terms of emotional regulation techniques, doing things like meditation, frontal lobe training that will all help with these sorts of things. But your brain is different. That's okay. You can train it up, but it gets more complicated. I want to highlight this relationship. So my first girlfriend would always forgive me because I can't live without her. But once we got back together, I'd return to my old habits, never putting in effort and blaming her for our fights. So sometimes when we have this social script of one person is subservient and one person is a dictator, one of the worst things that we can ever do is find someone who has the same script. So here's the angry person. Here's the person who receives the blame taker and the blame giver, right? So the girlfriend that you picked feels some degree of guilt. Oh, I can't live without you. And then they derive some kind of ego benefit from martyrdom because I have low self-esteem. Since I don't feel good about myself, the more that I martyr myself, the more that I put up with your abuse. You're abusing me so hard. You're getting angry at me. You never change. I'm not going to give up on you because that's not what I do. It's love forever till death do us part. So heap it on me, like heap it on me. Go ahead. Be as mean as you want to. I will never, ever abandon you. And the more that you heap it on me and the less that I abandon you, the more of a saint I become. So now y'all are both acting out parts of a play. Never going to get better. That's not how we heal. It's how we find harmony. Absolutely. And this is why sometimes I think the worst thing that you can do is look for a relationship where you're very harmonious. Y'all just fit together like gloves. Oh my God. Terrible relationship to find is one where y'all fit together like gloves, because that means the particular socialization, the particular ways that you're screwed up and the particular ways that they're screwed up fit together. That's not a good thing, because now y'all will just reenact the problems of the generations above. We want conflict in a relationship. We want there to be a growing of the two people, right? There should be tension. There should be conflict. And that's the cool thing. When there is tension and conflict, that's when we have to change. And as you change, you become a new person, and they become a new person. And now the growing on both of your ends, if it happens in the positive direction, results in a relationship that is like new and is really designed for the two of you. Really confusing. The other thing is that one thing that I think is really dumb, people will say, like, when you're trying to find a partner, sometimes people will come to me and they'll be like, Dr. K, I'm trying to figure out how to find love in this world. And I'm trying to just be my authentic self. And a lot of people will say, like, oh yeah, like, just be if you want to find a good partner, just be yourself. Just be yourself. I've never heard worse advice. Being yourself is such a terrible way to find a healthy relationship. So I want you to think about for a moment how we come to be. So the person that you are, the person that I am, is not crafted intentionally. It is some kind of amalgamation of dashed dreams, traumatic experiences, maladaptive coping mechanisms that have mashed together into this current version of you. It's not something that someone sat down and designed in a lab, right? Someone didn't sit down. Like, that's the work of being a person, is like, you don't want to just be yourself. You want to become something better. That's like what being human, that's what progress as a human being is. In your current form, unless you've done a lot of intentional crafting or you got really lucky, chances are what you are is not great. Now, why do people say be yourself? This is a response to the overwhelming social conditioning, where the rest of the world, this is important, the reason we say be yourself is because the rest of the world tells you to be something else. And so what you say is you say, no, I'm not going to be what the rest of the world tells me. I've given up my life for living up to the expectations of the people around me, so I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to start being myself. Both of those are mistakes. Either end of the spectrum. If you're at a negative 100 or a positive 100, both of them are bad. What you need to move is perpendicular to the whole axis. Become someone that you can be proud of. It's not automatic. Become someone that someone else would enjoy being with. I'm serious, right? And I don't say this as someone who's like, oh my God, I've done... No, like, I'm still doing this work. Like, I went through a midlife crisis that started about 2.5 years ago. It was great. And I was like, the person that I am is kind of shitty. Like, I'm great in a lot of ways, but like, I'm also kind of shitty, and I can be better. I can be a better parent. I can be a better professional. I can be a better doctor. I can be a better husband. I can be a better son. So be someone who is worth being and strive for that. Anyway, going back to anger. So there's blame takers and blame givers. And sometimes you'll wind up with people who will play through this socialization, this script, the same way that you will. And that feels really harmonious, but is oftentimes toxic. Okay? Now we get to a couple of other really important things about if you're struggling with anger. There are a couple of other dimensions that you need to understand. If the anger is overwhelming, why is that? That is because unless you are taught healthy emotional, unless your EQ is pretty high and you're a dude, there's a good chance that the reason you feel so much anger is because you're doing an internal alchemy where you take sadness, you take hopelessness, you take fear, and you turn them all into anger. We did a whole lecture on, like a 2-hour lecture on the nature of anger over on the membership side. We talk about this principle. We're going to share it here. Okay? So like, I'm going to give you all a simple example. Oh my God, I asked this person out on a date. They said no. Man, f that bitch, bro. She don't deserve me. I was doing her a favor. Y'all get that? That's actually a feeling of humiliation, of rejection. And what do? We turn it into anger. I'm sad. But sadness doesn't bode well for my future, so I'm going to turn it into anger. I'm going to do something about it. So here's the key thing. A lot of these emotions are emotions of inaction. If you're sad, what do you feel like doing? Nothing. If you're afraid, don't leave the house. If you're hopeless, there's no point. They're emotions that are designed to keep you still. Literally. Sadness is an emotion that human beings evolved as a beacon of distress to invoke action from other people. When I start crying on a park bench, what am I really doing? I'm signaling to all the strangers around me that I'm having a tough time. Come sit down and give me a hug. Hopelessness, don't bother. Conserve your resources. Fear, the consequences are too dangerous, don't act. And oftentimes when we are faced with bad situations and we feel negative emotions, we recognize that inaction is not going to solve our problems, that we don't live in a world that is getting better by the day. That we don't live in a world where sadness will evoke the appropriate response from my doormat mother or my dictator father. When I'm sad, how did they respond to me? Not in the right way. I've got to do it myself. So we turn inaction into action by transmuting anger. So this is what you need to do if you experience overwhelming anger. You need to look for these emotions, process these emotions. This person is sitting here. It's so great. Great example. Okay, I've tried therapy and anger management, but I always quit after a few sessions. It's like I can't stand the idea of someone else telling me how to behave, even when I know I need the help. This person doesn't need anger management. They need someone who is going to be a compassionate listener. Tell me how hard it is for you, and they're going to hate it. They're going to hate that too. But that's what they need. Y'all understand? They need stuff like this. Are you scared? Tell me about your fear. Are you hopeless? Tell me about your hopelessness. And we can see this, by the way. We can see all these emotions trickle out. You guys see that? Look, will I end up completely alone? What emotion is that? Will I ever be able to maintain a healthy relationship? I try to remind myself that everything here is my own fault. There's no one else to blame but me. So this brings us to the other point. Why do we get angry at other people? Because of displacement. When the anger towards ourselves, this is what happens. Here's my anger towards myself. When this fills up, it starts to flow over into other people. And then I get angry at other people when really who I'm angry at is myself. There's no more space for the self-hatred. There's no much space for, look at the self-loathing in this post. Everything is my own fault. I don't have deep connections. When people really see who I am, I can put on an act for a little while, but when they really see who I am, when they see that rotten core of messed up stuff, of the pathetic, angry little bitch who knows what he's supposed to do but can't bring himself to do it. When you know you need therapy and you end up quitting therapy anyway, when you know you should apologize and you can't bring yourself to apologize, how do you feel towards yourself? You're so angry towards yourself. And then you can only handle so much anger towards yourself. And then you have this little voice, oh, look at this little baby, oh, little baby over here. Hold on. Look at this little baby. Oh, I'm not all bad. I can be funny and creative when I'm in a good mood. I'm great with computers. Look, don't beat yourself up. You're a good boy too. You're a good boy. You're not all bad. But everything is my own fault. No one else to blame but me. You guys see that? So much conflict. So much self-loathing. And then the part of you that's like, no, you're a good person. But this other part of you is like, no, you're not. Yeah, oh, you could be a good person, but deep down, when they see the real you, when they get to the core, oh my God, it's so bad. So much hatred, so much self-loathing, so much anger towards yourself. When you're angry with yourself, you'll be angry with the rest of the world. And this person doesn't know what to do. They're stuck. They're terrified. I've tried anger management. So then we get to part 6. The ego. So these kinds of people can really benefit from ego-based work. You don't like to be told what to do. So tell me about that. Who are you? And for those of y'all that are familiar with the ego, remember that ego arises to protect you from negative emotion, right? This girl rejected me or this guy rejected me. He doesn't deserve me. I'm so much better. He would be lucky to date me. I'm so much better than anything he will ever have ever in the history of existence. This is an ego response. So as long as the ego is running the show, as long as you have to pump yourself up because your core is rotten, and that doesn't feel good, so I'm going to pump myself up. And then when I interact with other people, imagine how hard it is for them, because if they insult you even a little bit, you go off the handle. Oh my God, you're disrespecting me. How dare you disrespect me? And then if they're nice to you, then you're like, don't be nice to me because I'm rotten on the inside. Save yourself. Break up with me. Never talk to me again. Go and live a happy life without me because I'm rotten at the core. So if they're nice to you, you push them away. And if they're critical of you, you're like, and it's like, how are other people supposed to relate to this? And it's really confusing for you too. Because half the time you're angry with them, half of the time you think they deserve someone better than you. It's so ego. Let go of the ego a little bit. Notice, right? So what does this say about me? Who do I think I am? And if you're trying to move forward from this kind of stuff, I think there's a couple of really important things to do. The first is to recognize this cycle of how anger evolves. And the cycle involves several steps, right? The first thing is to look at your associations, your shoulds, but especially the shoulds that other people relate to you with. So how should other people treat you? That's the question to ask yourself. How should other people treat me? What should they do? What's the right way to behave? Second thing you need to do is before you get angry, look for the hurt. So anytime you get angry, there's a good chance that you feel hurt. You feel some other kind of emotion. Then what we talked about is the egocentricity. So not only do you feel hurt, there's some kind of association. When you put these two things together, this means something about you. So when someone doesn't call me back, I feel hurt, and that means that they don't care about me. This means that I'm weak. This means that they think I'm pathetic. I'm not going to let them treat me this way. Like, oh my God, like these therapists. Oh my God, telling me what to do, right? I can't stand the idea of someone else telling me how to behave. They have the gall to tell me how to behave. I know how to behave. I'm behaving perfectly. That's why I'm in this situation, because everything I'm doing is right. How dare they? You see the ego response? So look for this. Look for the rules of the game. How should people treat you? How should you treat other people? Look for the hurt that you feel before you get angry. Look for what this means about you. When these two events happen, what does it mean? What is the part that really hurts? It's something about you. It says something about you. You believe it says something about you. And that's what's really confusing for them, because that's not what they intend. And then when you put these two things together, this creates some degree of malice, malevolence, right? Since I am hurt, they tried to hurt me. They're trying to make me weak. So this will turn into, by the way, all kinds of other emotions, right? So there'll be sadness, there'll be rejection. And by the way, I have a list of words here. So if you guys are looking for more resolution into this, I wrote these down, just how complex this can be. Dominated, controlled, disrespected, humiliated, rejected, devalued, criticized, abandoned, cheated, wounded, thwarted, misled, undermined, let down. This is the series of emotions that take this, and when you add egocentricity, this is what you end up with. So this is how these people usually feel. Oh, I was misled. This person took advantage of me. I've been thwarted. This person doesn't recognize my true potential. I've been denied. I feel controlled. Controlled is powerlessness plus ego. Rejected is humiliation plus ego. Y'all see that? So you'll track these emotions back to some other emotion. Then you work on this, and you work on this. And then this is what ends up into anger and then action. So this too, once we get down here, we can do meditation. We can do behavioral training. This is like anger management, right? So this is how you fix this. Got to understand these steps. All right, let's take questions. How do you calm people that are angry with you? So the reason it's hard to calm people who are angry at you is because there's not a way to teach. There's not a way that works. As a psychiatrist, what I'll usually do is in a span of about 60 to 90 seconds, I'll go through a list of different things that I'll try. So the first thing that I'll try is to just listen. So anger usually involves like energy sent your way. And if you push back against it, oftentimes it intensifies. So the first thing that I'll do is just listen and see if I'm not very reactive and I listen and I start to ask open-ended questions that get them talking. What are you upset about? Can you help me understand what the situation is? You know, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. That's kind of the angle, okay? Now, there's some people for whom that'll start to calm them down, because if you sort of hold their emotion, when they're angry with you, if you can kind of just hold that emotion, the emotion will start to deflate. Some people, though, will, if you start asking them questions, if you start to offer like compassion, they'll just get more pissed off. And that's when we use a really interesting technique, which is mirroring. So we don't usually think about using mirroring. We'll say like, oh, like if you're in a job interview and your interviewer crosses the arms and does this, you should do this too, because that means that they will hire you. You have all this people saying this stupid kind of stuff. There's a certain degree, there's that sort of stuff is true, but I think it tends to be overblown. So here's what really works well. If someone starts yelling at you, you should yell back. And then intentionally calm yourself down visibly in front of them. And then they will calm down too. This is the most effective technique. Works incredibly well. I walk into the emergency room and someone says, well, Dr. K. And I'm like, hey, what are you yelling at me for, man? I didn't bring you here. And then oftentimes they're surprised. They're like, Like they're expecting you to be like soft. And then then what you do is you don't get angry. This is important. You display anger, you show anger, you raise the tone of your voice. Why are you yelling at me? And then you calm yourself down. I'm sorry, dude. It's been a long day. I know you're here. You got upset. You don't want to be here. I don't want to be here either, but I don't understand why you're yelling at me. I'm here to help you. My bad. I shouldn't have lost my temper with you. Can you tell me what's going on and maybe we can figure this thing out? That's what you do. They're angry. You respond with anger before they escalate. And this is why it's really important. Don't lose control. Don't start blaming them. You express anger without blame. Why are you yelling at me? What did I do? I just got here. And then you calm yourself down, right? So, and if they are blaming you, let's say you're like at home and someone's like, oh my God, you didn't I asked you to take out the laundry. Like you didn't take out the laundry. And then you get angry with them. Yeah, I didn't take out the laundry. I said I was going to do it. This stuff happened. Look, I realize I said I was going to do something and I didn't do it. Can you tell me what's upsetting you? Like, I'm going to try to calm down. Me yelling doesn't help. You yelling doesn't help. Can we try to figure out what's going on? I can maybe do the laundry now. The reason I didn't take out I have a perspective on this, right? I was about to start yelling at you. The reason I didn't take out the laundry is because I was emptying the dishwasher. You said you were going to do the dishwasher. You didn't do the dishwasher. People are going to be here in 45 minutes. The dishwasher needs to be empty. Okay, I said I was going to do something. You said you were going to do something. What are we going to do? Can we just calm down and figure this out? So you respond initially with anger and then calm yourself down. And when you do that, a lot of people, you'd be amazed. When you do it properly, and this is the really important thing, you can express anger without attacking. The moment that you attack, the anger is going to explode. You want to express anger, but don't blame. Blame will make things worse. Accept some responsibility. Visible show of calming yourself down. I need to take a deep breath. Can we please try to figure this out in a civilized manner? But if you want to yell, I can fucking yell. I don't think that helps any of us, okay? So anger, meet them where they're at, and then start ratchet it down. They'll ratchet down with you. Works incredibly well. Great question. Hey y'all, hope you enjoyed today's video. We talk about a bunch of topics like this on the channel, so be sure to subscribe for more. If you're already subscribed, GG, and we'll see you in chat.